Good afternoon and welcome to the Midday News. Here's what we have in the bulletin. Members of the PNP at the opening of Parliament. And later in sports, Reggae Boys dropped 3 places in latest FIFA World Rankings following dismal start to 2022. I'm Krista Campbell and here are the details. Embattled Central Westmoreland Member of Parliament George Wright was not welcomed to walk alongside the People's National Party PNP en route to Gordon House this morning. The MP, who is now an independent, was shunned while walking with the PNP MPs during the ceremonial walk down Duke Street to Gordon House. Our cameras captured opposition leader Mark Golding indicating to Mr. Wright that he should not walk with his team.
Direct disrespect. No, man, just go on. Come on, go on. Let's send you for do this. Send your people.
Time MP George Wright, who was a part of the governing Jamaica Labour Party, resigned from that party after reports surfaced that he beat a woman. Mr. Wright won the Central Westmoreland seat during the 2020 general elections. Human rights advocacy group Stand Up for Jamaica is questioning witness accounts in the case of Nzinga King. Witnesses reported seeing Ms. King pulling out her locks while in lockup at the Four Parts police station in Clarendon last year. Speaking today on the morning agenda on Power 106, the advocacy group's executive director Carla Gulata, who sports locks, said it would have been extremely painful exercise.
Inform everybody that I have locks. And I would not be able to suicide myself with my locks. And I would not be able to pull them one. You know how painful it is? Mm-hmm. If you pull one, you cry for half an hour. So I am looking at the fact that there is a long story, and there is especially a young Rastafarian. And I'm looking at the fact that all of that sounds very much as disrespect towards what it is, the crown for a Rasta lady.
Now, Ms. King claims a police corporal cut her locks. In the ruling yesterday, the Director of Public Prosecutions, DPP, said witnesses also claimed that Ms. King had confessed to cutting her own hair. Ms. King's attorney, Isaac Buchanan, says his client stands by her allegations. Nzinga will be filing a civil suit after the DPP said there was not enough evidence on which to pursue criminal proceedings. The government says it will be looking to implement a permanent fix to the flooding issue which continues to affect Runaway Basin Town. Local Government Minister Desmond Mackenzie gave the assurance while on a tour of several parishes on Wednesday which were affected by floodwaters last week. O'Shane Masters has the details.
This was the scene in Runaway Basin Town following a few hours of heavy rains last week. But this is not a one-off case, as for years this area has been prone to flooding. However, attention will now be given to fix the problem once and for all. Local Government Minister Desmond Mackenzie, who toured the area on Wednesday, says there was significant infrastructural damage in the parishes of St. Mary and St. Anne.
The NWA will be working with them to put in some temporary solutions until we can address the problem. It's not going to happen overnight because what we have seen since we came out this morning is an infrastructure that has outgrown its useful life, and we are now seeing the results of constant flooding.
In the interim, the National Works Agency says some temporary measures will be implemented to alleviate the problem.
What we have decided to do, because what came down is not just water, but a lot of debris, is we're going to look and see how much we can open these openings that we have here that will allow for not just water, but also different things to actually get in and to be able to drain away.
As for the breakaways identified,
We will be working closely with the municipal corporation in providing assessment and design solution for retaining structures for these breakaways, and we'll provide those to the municipality for their construction and with our provision oversight.
In the meantime, Mr. Mackenzie is raising concern about what the next hurricane season might bring. He says recommendations will be made to have significant improvement in the country's infrastructure before the season begins in June.
We are concerned because we are not even close to the hurricane season. So we know we have to look at how we are going to approach the upcoming hurricane season and to put a list of priority areas. So once we have identified those areas that we consider to be areas of priority, when we make our report back to Cabinet, we will detail our report in such a way that we deal with the issues based on priorities.
O'Shane Masters, TVJ News.
We take a break now from the Midday News and return with more stories after this. Welcome back to the Midday News. Housing and security are two of the top priorities of the government for the 2022-2023 financial year. Governor General Sir Patrick Allen outlined the plans in the throne speech a short while ago. Our reporter Vashan Brown is at Gordon House and now joins us live. Vashan?
Thank you so much. Now, as you can see, members of both houses of Parliament, that is the lower house, the House of Representatives, as well as the upper house, the Senate, are now exiting the chambers following the delivery of the throne speech by the Governor General. Now, as is usually the case, this function was attended by various public officials. We're talking about the Commissioner of Police, Major General Anthony Anderson, the newly installed Chief of Defense Staff, Rear Admiral Antoinette Weems Gorman. Now, some of the points from the Governor General's speech, he spoke about economic resilience, which is still high on the government's agenda, given the impact that COVID-19 has had on the economy. There are also talks about public sector reform. Now, the government says it will begin the implementation of restructuring the compensation scheme for the public sector. Now, another key point related to the construction of a new parliament. Now, there have been debates about this issue over the years. On the one hand, some people argue that this parliament is not needed right now and the money could be better used. While on the other hand, some say that the parliament that now exists is an embarrassment. Well, the government says moving into the 60th year of independence, it will begin the construction of that new parliament. There are also talks about the National Housing Trust.
National Housing Trust, NHT, wrote 6,924 loans with a value of $24.1 billion between April 2021 and December 2021, and is on course to write over 8,000 loans by the end of the financial year. The NHT currently has 12,019 housing solutions under construction, in addition to 24,500 housing solutions in planning across the island.
Now, crime is still a big issue, and the government will be using some key pieces of legislation to tackle crime. One such, the anti-gang legislation.
Since its passage, there have been 39 convictions involving 11 accused persons. Additionally, amendments were passed to the Corrections Act and the Trafficking in Persons Act, Prevention, Suppression, and Punishment Amendment Act. As a matter of priority, the government is pressing ahead with the development of several new and revised legislation. These include 1. The Firearms Prohibition, Restriction and Regulation Bill, which will be tabled today.
Now, you just heard about that firearms bill. Now, the House of Representatives will meet at 2 p.m. where that piece of legislation will be tabled. Thereafter, the Senate will meet at 3:30 p.m. where, again, that legislation will be considered. Another critical piece of legislation that the government says is in need of reform is the Bail Act. Now, new provisions will be enacted in relation to the granting and denial of bail and related matters. Another key thing that will happen today is the tabling of the budget, and that will happen at 2 p.m. and we will have more on the opening of Parliament in Primetime News at 7, so please stay with us.
Thanks so much. Thank you so much. Our senior reporter there, Vashan Brown, reporting on the ceremonial opening of Parliament today. Jamaica's COVID-19 positivity rate has further declined to 14.9%. The Ministry of Health says 152 cases were confirmed yesterday from 2,201 samples, and 2 more persons have died from COVID-19 in Jamaica, increasing the death toll to 2,708. The latest fatalities include a 79-year-old man from Clarendon and a 75-year-old man who lived in Trelawney. Now, the Ministry of Health is investigating 6 other deaths. And for the latest in the financial world, here's Cody and Barrett with the Business Minute.
CEO of Separate Group Richard Bandohi says manufacturers are taking a significant hit from rising fuel prices. He says the country has to urgently shift to using renewable energy sources in order to buffer the impact of rising global oil prices.
We're in a country that with great weather most of the year, lots of sunshine, and we're not using enough renewables. I mean, that's where, again, the oil price is going to be where it's going to go. And I mean, we can't do anything about it. But what we can do about it is look at what the resources that we have available. Jamaica is blessed with many resources or the availability to use many things that we're not utilizing.
And in business internationally, the prices of goods and services in the United States accelerated by more than expected last month, pushing annual inflation up to 7.5%, the highest rate since 1982. Excluding the cost of food and energy, which tend to be more volatile, prices increased by 6% between January 2021 and January 2022. Food prices rose 7% over the same period, while energy prices rose 27%, led by oil and gasoline prices. And that's it for the Business Minute.
Time now for the top regional and international stories. Here's Sandy Williams.
In regional news, St. Lucian Prime Minister Philip Pierre has tested positive for COVID-19, according to a statement issued by the Office of the Prime Minister OPM on Wednesday. It said that Prime Minister Pierre, who was elected to office in the July 27 general election last year, underwent a routine PCR test. He is presently isolated and will continue working from home. According to the OPM, the Prime Minister is fully vaccinated and has received his booster shot. Mr. Pierre is the latest CARICOM leader to test positive for the virus, joining Belizean Prime Minister John Briceño and Trinidad and Tobago's Prime Minister Dr. Keith Brownlee. International scene, the Prince of Wales has tested positive for COVID-19 and is now self-isolating. Prince Charles' positive result was announced moments before he was due to arrive at an engagement in Winchester. On Wednesday, he and his wife, the Duchess of Cornwall, met with guests at a reception in the British Museum. However, Duchess Camilla tested negative for the coronavirus on Thursday. This is the second time Prince Charles has contracted COVID-19. The 73-year-old heir to the throne last caught the virus in March 2020, but reported only mild symptoms. Clarence House confirmed that Prince Charles was triple vaccinated, but would not give any details on whether he was experiencing coronavirus symptoms this time. And those were the top regional and international stories. I'm Sandy Williams.
We head to a quick break now. When we come back, Renardo Brown will have your midday sports report.
Welcome back. It's now time for your midday sports. The Reggae Boys fell 3 places to number 62 in the world following the latest release of the FIFA World Rankings. The last 41 days have not been kind to the Reggae Boys as they have lost their last 4 internationals, including 3 in the CONCACAF World Cup qualifiers. Despite the drop on the world ranking, the national senior men's football team remains 5th in the CONCACAF, behind Mexico, the United States, Canada, and Costa Rica. The team had started 2022 at number 59, 11 places down from where they were 12 months ago. There has been only one change in the position of the top 5 teams in the world, as Argentina moved above England into 4th. Belgium continues to lead the world, followed by Brazil and France, making up the top 3. And Reggae boy Michael Antonio has questioned the reaction to the Kurt Zuma cat-kicking incident, saying, quote, "Is it worse than players convicted of racism?" End quote. Zuma's cats have been taken away by the RSPCA after a disturbing video emerged of him hitting, dropping and kicking his pet across his kitchen floor on Monday. West Ham have fined Zuma 2 weeks' wages, understood to be £250,000, which will be donated to animal welfare charities, while Adidas have dropped him as a client. Here's Antonio's response about his West Ham teammate to a Sky Sports reporter.
What should it be, a harsher punishment for Zuma for what he did? What do you think?
I've got a question for you.
You go for it.
So, do you think what he's done is worse than racism?
I mean, it's totally different. They're two different things, isn't it? You're not comparing life to life.
I'm not condoning a thing that he's done.
Sure.
I don't agree with what he's done at all.
Sure.
But there's people that's convicted, been caught for racism, and has played football afterwards. They got punished, they got 8-game punishment or something like that. But people are now calling for people to be sacked, for them to lose their livelihood. I've just got to ask this question to everyone out there, is what he's done worse than what the people have done that are convicted for racism?
And some news from the Winter Olympics now. Jamaica's two-man bobsled team of pilot Sean Stevens and brakeman Nimrod Turgut made their eagerly anticipated appearance at the Winter Olympic Games in Beijing, China, as they finished as the second fastest nation in practice on Thursday. In the official training Heat 1, Stevens and Turgut produced a time of 1:01.18 seconds. The time ranked them fourth overall and was 0.55 seconds off Canada's team led by Justin Cripps. The Jamaicans were slightly slow in the second training run, ending with a time of 1:01.25 seconds. Meanwhile, in round one of the women's monobob official training, Jasmine Fenletta Victorian ended bottom of the list of 20 competitors with a time of 1:06.45 seconds, a time which saw her 2.05 seconds off the top performer. Her time was slow on her second run as she stopped the clock at 1:06.83 to finish the day at the foot of the standing. And finally, Liverpool could be without Mohamed Salah and Sadio Mane for their home meeting with Leicester City in the English Premier League later today at 2:45. Following his return from the Africa Cup of Nations, Salah will be assessed by the club's medical staff before a decision is made on his participation. Mane, however, will not be considered for action against Leicester after returning to Senegal to celebrate their triumph in Sunday's AFCON final. In the other game, Wolverhampton Wanderers will host Arsenal also at 2:45. Arsenal are looking to avoid losing back-to-back away league matches at Wolves for the first time since February 1975, following their 2-1 defeat last season. And that's it for your Midday Sports Report. Krista, it's back to you.
Thank you so much, Bernardo. And that's the Midday News. I'm Krista Campbell. Join us again at 7 for Primetime News. On behalf of the news, sports, and production teams, good afternoon.